For a long time, video games have been branded as an outcast media, mocked, disparaged for its alleged tendencies to stultify youth. Today, more than ever, creators who express themselves through video games prove that it deserves its place alongside established arts such as cinema or photography. Arts having themselves experienced this delicate phase of recognition with the general public. The diversity and richness of this medium offers us great experiences, emotional roller coaster through magnificent stories, incredible characters and enchanting music. Today we are going to cover the first part of the 10 games that left a mark on me. This is a varied selection and I hope to succeed in making you want to try some of them if you haven't already. Enjoy the rest of this video. The Last Guardian is a PlayStation 4 exclusive released on December 7th, 2016. It is Fumito Ueda's third title after Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. Although it was slightly less well received by critics than its two older brothers, it would be a shame to miss The Last Guardian. In fact, despite some technical flaws, especially its camera, the game will offer you a unique experience. The adventure begins slowly and the gameplay is somewhat sluggish, sometimes frustrating, even of another age, which could discourage you from continuing the adventure. But that would be missing out on what makes the game great. A great mystery envelops the world presented to you in The Last Guardian, as always with Fumito Ueda. You will initially have a certain fear of your companion given the circumstances of your meeting. But the bond that will be woven between this child and this creature will only strengthen over their misadventures. When everything seems against you, your companion called Trico will draw on his last strength to rescue you. And it's your turn to help him when he needs you. Alternating platform phases, puzzles and battles, The Last Guardian offers a very beautiful orchestral soundtrack composed by Takeshi Furukawa. The end themes are particularly memorable. The various threats that you will face manage to maintain a certain tension in your adventure. Can you escape this mysterious valley which will do everything to keep you both? This is the main plot of the game, which will only reveal its secrets to you at the cost of hard efforts. The choice of gameplay tends to make us feel how insignificant we, the player, are in this immense and ancient valley. The Last Guardian offers one of the most moving finals out of all the video games I've ever played so far. This is a safe bet and I can only encourage you to play it despite some of its technical flaws. You will not regret it. Rime is a game that almost never came into our hands. Indeed, the title had found its funding from Sony and was initially supposed to be a PlayStation 4 exclusive. Announced in August 2013, Rime nevertheless saw its development shaken, and in September 2016, the Spanish studio Tequila Works announced that it had recovered the rights. We will find out that the title will now be released on PlayStation 4, Xbox One and PC in May 2017, and 6 months later on Switch. I played the Switch version in portable mode once patched. Whatever your platform, I can only recommend this title to you. Rime is a poetic action-adventure and puzzles game. It is inspired by big names in video games such as Ico or Journey. Its puzzles are refreshing, but can in some cases generate frustration, especially when you happen not to know what to do or where to go. The thinking aspect is certainly not the strongest point of the game, even if overall it remains quite honorable. Where Rime shines is through its artistic direction, supported by both beautiful visuals and a superb soundtrack composed by David Garcia Diaz. He later composed the soundtrack for Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. When it was released, the game suffered from technical problems on all platforms, which earned it the wrath of many critics and players. Over time, the title was patched and became much more enjoyable, although still imperfect to this day. The story invites you to discover what this island conceals, who these mysterious inhabitants are, and who you are. There is no fighting in Rime. For that, you will have to interact with the local fauna, with curious mechanisms, flee from dangers, and you will even make a friend who will become a kind of guide. Your voice will also be a tool, and it fits particularly well into the sound atmosphere of the game. But be warned, the final will not leave you indifferent. Nier Automata is an action RPG designed by Yoko Taro, the creator of Dragoon and Nier series. Released in early 2017 on PlayStation 4 and PC, it was not until June 2018 that Xbox One players could try it out. The story immerses you in the heart of a conflict between aliens and humans. It opposes their respective creations, namely the machines for aliens against androids for humans. Humanity having to flee Earth, androids of which you are part are sent there from an orbital station. The player embodies 2B, an android with a very feminine appearance. She is specialized in combat. You will be joined by another android, 9S, with skill in machine analysis and hacking. The sending of your team to Earth does not end very well since you are the only survivor. You crash and find yourself confronted with the first enemies. That's when you take control of the main combat system of the game, namely the hack and slash typical of Platinum games. You will then be joined by your companion to end the introduction of the game. You will still have to wait a little longer before reaching the open world of the game. Thereafter, the game will continue to offer a very varied gameplay with side-scrolling phases in shoot-them-up or in interactive fiction. You will be accompanied by pods with functions that can be personalized just like your own chips, which will have a significant impact on your adventure. Your mission will be to investigate the enemy. So I will avoid spoiling you, but know that it will be necessary to replay the game at least 3 times in order to have a good understanding of the sprawling scenario. Yoko Taro plays here with twists and perspectives. I'm generally not a fan of this mechanic, which forces the player to restart, because I take my time and explore the game in depth the first time. Be aware, however, that your 3 runs will not be identical. We discussed the first 2 highlights of the title, which are the super satisfying gameplay and story. The other big highlight of the game is its soundtrack, which magnificently completes its identity. Listen instead. However, the game is not perfect, especially on the technical side. Regardless of the platform, PlayStation 4, Xbox One or PC, performance can drop frames. This will not, however, taint the overall feeling of the title. In addition, the world you travel through seems quite empty. Not because story won't that, no. In this regard, the game is a bit dated, especially some textures. Despite all that, there emerges overall a strong cohesion, and the vision of its creator is rather very well executed. At the mercy of twists and turns of the story, We come to philosophize about our condition, the absurdity of our existence, as well as our incredible ability to kill each other. I repeat myself, but you will need at least the first 3 endings to have a good understanding of the author's vision. The various twists and turns have touched me much more than I would have imagined when launching a title like this. Nier Automata is a game that has managed to break free from the niche genre to which it was confined, to sell more than 4 million copies based on the last Square Enix report of 2019. Despite this, it is still relatively unknown to the general public, and if you are watching this video, I encourage you to play it if you haven't already. Nier Automata is a game that you will remember for a long time. Brothers is an adventure game imagined by Joseph Fares, a Lebanese-Swedish director and screenwriter, also the father of A Way Out. Brothers was released in 2013 on Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and PC, in 2015 on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and in 2019 on Switch. In this adventure, you will control 2 brothers simultaneously using the 2 joysticks on your controller. It's a bit confusing at first, but you get used to it relatively quickly. It should be noted that the Switch is the only platform to offer a co-op mode. Indeed, each brother can be controlled using a separate Joy-Con, unlike the other versions. That said, the game was originally designed to be played by one person. Our adventurers therefore go in search of the water from the Tree of Life in order to cure their ill father. Although the world you will explore is fantastic, the context is no less dramatic because you have already lost your mother before you even start your quest. It is a story based on a Swedish novel. Gameplay, apart from the double control of the brothers, is quite simple to handle. You will be able to interact with environments, with objects, and talk to non-player characters. The 2 brothers being different, the older brother can for example lift the younger brother in order to access high places. The younger brother can slink into tight spots. You will have to fight your way through this world while solving relatively simple puzzles. Difficulty is not the main attraction of the title, but the adventure instead. Our characters interact in an entirely fictional language, and the messages are mainly conveyed in the form of gestures and expressions, which helps to shape the particular and fantastic atmosphere of the game. Your journey will have a special charm over the meetings you will make and the varied environments that you will travel. Joseph Fares insisted that no graphic elements should be reused several times, such as trees and other decorative elements. Thus, your adventure will have a unique flavor, giving you the impression that everything was integrated into it by choice and not by procedural generation. The mood will alternate between light phases and darker phases. There is something touching and timeless about this fable. This linear adventure was designed with passion, and all lovers of beautiful adventure games must experience it. Panzer Dragoon Saga is a Japanese RPG released exclusively on the Sega Saturn in 1998. It is the 3rd episode of the series after 2 rail shooters, the first of which is reputed to have installed an iconic artistic direction, and the second one to have improved the formula and technique more fluidly. Saga has Japanese voices and has only received English closed captions. Add to this that the Saturn was at the end of its life, that marketing was almost non-existent, and that the number of copies in the West was very limited when it was released. It is not surprising that few players have been able to play it. The game was developed by Team Andromeda, created in 1994 to work on the Panzer Dragoon series and disbanded in 1998 after the release of Panzer Dragoon Saga. Development started at the same time as the second episode, Zwei. The vision of the creator of the series, Yukio Futatsugi, therefore led the team to work this time on a title with very different gameplay, which did not happen without lively debates between team members at the start. The work on this third episode was particularly intense since it corresponded to the period of the fierce battle between the PlayStation 1 and the Saturn. Sega needed a title to respond in terms of RPGs to Final Fantasy VII at Sony. Futatsugi recently talked about how much the PlayStation Mini ads bothered him, proved that there is still an open wound despite having left Sega a long time ago. During the title development, the team experienced 2 deaths, including a road accident. Years later, Yukio Futatsugi and his former colleagues still seem to be marked by this time, evoking the absence of modern tools of management and time management such as those which we have today. After these details concerning its development, let's go back to our story. Your adventure takes place a few years after the events of the first title, Zwei being a prequel to the series. The events are told through the eyes of Eiji, a mercenary watching over a quarry of the Empire conducting excavations, the Empire being one of the forces in action. You will quickly face the second force at play, that is, a group of Empire rebels led by Craymen. Their goal is to recover a relic of the past which will prove to be particularly important in the course of the story. Your companions are killed and you owe your salvation to luck or maybe something else. After a vertiginous fall, you will need a way to rise to the surface. In doing so, you will find yourself face to face with a group of monsters and death seems inevitable. That is when the legendary dragon will appear. Eiji vows revenge on the fleet that attacked him and his companions. Leaving the canyon, Eiji saves Gash, a seeker, the seekers being a group of scavengers. Ash will guide Eiji in starting his research and so your journey begins. The game is entirely in 3D and not with pre-calculated backgrounds and fixed plans as with the case with several titles of the time such as Final Fantasy VII. The combat system was quite innovative at the time. Indeed, there is no static turn-based combat here. The team wanted to combine the shooter side of the first 2 titles, since lock-on laser aiming returns as well as the gun, with a more strategic aspect which is concretized in the form of a possible positioning in 4 quadrants around the enemy. Sometimes you will have to flee from a dangerous area or look for a weak spot in the enemy. This aspect makes fighting particularly dynamic. The second specificity is a kind of active time battle, filling 3 gauges over time when you are static in one of the quadrants. The number of gauges filled allows you various actions like the launching of more or less powerful attack or defense spells. Finally, unlike many JRPGs in which you manage a team of several members, here you only have your dragon. To counterbalance this, developers have added the possibility of morphing the dragon. This has the effect of varying the attack or defense statistics, among others. After each battle, a rating is assigned to you based on your performance, influencing your reward in experience points and items. During your progression, you will be entitled to many random battles, which is a little frustrating but not so much in the end given the rather pleasant combat gameplay. Random battles were common at the time due to technical limitations. Indeed, it was simply impossible to display on screen as many elements and enemies as today. The combat system is a strong point of the title. Another big highlight is its soundtrack, the superb music of the game being composed for the most part by Saori Kobayashi as well as Mariko Nanba. Here are some snippets. The sounds are also very effective and consistent with the two previous titles. Rare for the time, the game is fully dubbed by Japanese actors.
それになんで追わなきゃならないんです。
Although the majority of us do not understand this language, the voices are particularly mature and convincing. And I'm still amazed at its quality even compared to games coming out in 2020, for which Japanese voices are often childish. The few shortcomings of the title mainly concerns its lifespan, although this was never a problem for me. It has also sometimes been judged to be too easy, but the real challenge is to have an excellent rating in every battle. Certain interior design levels sometimes tend to be confusing, and the map system of the time was simply two-dimensional, which could be problematic in vertical areas. Some of these labyrinthine areas are a bit long, but this is about quibbling because overall the game is more like an adventure than an RPG. Cutscenes lend additional credibility to the world we travel through. We get attached to these characters and our dragon as we progress, especially as our dragon becomes more and more badass. Indeed, by gaining levels, it takes different, increasingly epic forms. Panzer Dragoon Saga is without a doubt one of the first video games that distressed me so much. It will be difficult for you to say goodbye to our adventurers when you see the end credits crawling with one of the most epic video game ending music. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have put a lot of heart, passion and above all work into it. This is why, if you enjoy this content, I invite you to do me this service by liking the video, by sharing it and also by subscribing to the channel so as not to miss the rest of these 10 games that touched me. I will probably publish some other content before the second part of this video, in particular concerning the next generation, and I am looking forward to read your reactions. Take care of yourself and see you soon.